Hi everyone, we're going to do another Ashley driving video today, and what we're going to do is look at something that not many BMW drivers use brilliantly apparently, and it's indicators. We're going to be looking at signals in general, so it's not necessarily just going to be the indicators. I'm going to be looking at position, I'm going to be looking at all sorts, anything to do with signalling on the road, whether it be me telling others what I intend to do, or we're also going to have a look hopefully at what other people are doing and what their signals are like, and how maybe they could be improved. Haven't got a clue how it's going to go, as normal with these particular videos. I'm just going to absolutely wing it. I'm going to take a little bit of a different route. I've done a route from this area before on one of the videos, so I'm going to take definitely a different route home, and we will we'll have a little look. So here we go. So first of all, the signal to move off. It's probably not worth it at the minute. There's no one coming up behind, there's no one ahead that was going to be an issue, so I just simply left it. But at the lights we're going to turn left. Now the first thing that I'd like to start going on about is the importance of mirrors before signalling. People get into a habit of just chucking these on straight away without looking, and you cannot time signals correctly if you're just putting the signal on straight away without looking. It's impossible to time it correctly. Just for example, while we're just sat here at the lights, I'm obviously turning left in a minute. While we're sat here at the lights, if you had a big lorry following you, maybe downhill in wet weather, you would need to tell that lorry earlier that you're doing the particular left turn than if you had no one following you. So what you need to do with these signals is actually change them to suit where people are around you and what's going on, and that's what we're going to look at today. There's a big thought from people as well that you should put them on regardless, and although that sometimes won't cause any issues, it doesn't improve you as a driver. So no worries, let's have a little look. So I've obviously put the left signal on there, and the reason for that signal is not the fact that I'm turning, it's the fact that I'm slowing down to turn. If you think of the vehicles behind you in that particular situation, they need to know that you're slowing down to make that turn rather than the fact that you're turning in that direction. So sometimes people get the wrong idea of these signals. So we've just got a 20 limit. There's nothing really to look at regarding signals. Maybe the car behind, I'm looking at the signals that the car behind is showing, and it's showing all good signs at the minute. It's keeping its distance, it's not positioning to the offside of the car, there's no issues with it. So it's not just indicators that we need to work with. So we're going to get down to the end of the road, and I'm going to do a left turn. Because our speed is slower, the timing of the signal can be closer to the junction, but this one behind still needs enough time to know what I'm doing. So I've checked and probably put it on round about there. Okay, entrances like that, you don't have to generally worry about signalling beforehand. People aren't going to think you're going to go into an entrance like that, so that's not an issue. You'd notice there, using the limiter, there's a speed limiter on this car, and I use it quite often on different ranges of speed limits, to be fair. Nothing wrong with using that on your test, no problems. So if you've got a speed limiter on your car, use it. It keeps you lively and switched on to the situation. So that guy crossed the road, and I'm just looking again behind to see whether I need to use my brake lights as a signal. People forget. Just going to shut up a second. This scenario, do not need to signal to move out. All right, I'm taking a position that's absolutely positive to everyone else around what I'm doing with that van, and I definitely don't need to signal to come back in. People seem to think that they have to put these signals on to move and steer, and that's not the case. And again, just checking my mirrors, and I'm positioning as early as I can to try and get the best idea to other people around of what I'm doing. Okay, so some people might be surprised today on the amount that I actually signal, but it's not necessarily always the good thing. People put signals on, like I've discussed, without that thought, because it's just a habit, and then honestly it just causes chaos and havoc a lot of the time. People don't look properly, and it's the lack of look which is the key. So these lights, I'm going to turn right. There's no other side roads, that's another important thing with signals, but my position is already showing people loads, so I am going to put a signal on just to reinforce to these people behind, if they haven't seen the road markings, that I'm waiting here to do the right turn. And obviously we've got the keep clear in front. Who else would that signal help? Well, people across this far right hand side, it may help. So this girl just crossing the road to my right now, she may very well look across this way and see that there's cars that could come round in front of her. She did have a little look. So the signal isn't just for people behind like loads of people think, it's for the whole environment, everyone around. And the real skill to it is to see whether your signal is going to be effective and if it's required, and that really promotes good observation. So that's what we'll be trying to show and trying to do this morning. Okay. Now, I've already shown it in other videos, but if my lights change, I'm going to try and move a little so it shows this girl walking that I'm moving. I'm not yet, but if my lights to change, alright, she's going to be clear now, but if my lights were to change and she was still at the side, I would maybe get my engine started, maybe by pressing the clutch and getting it restarted with the stop-start system, and I'd maybe move. And that's also a signal. It shows people our intentions. So no worries. So there's no one really close behind if these lights change. I've got no big issues with showing my brake lights really early. There's no one about, it's a clear road. So say for example I was going to do a lane change now to the right. People often say, well, you should signal anyway. No, you shouldn't, because now if you've seen all this, you then make informed decisions, and it makes you more aware. Think of your signals as the words excuse me. Now, would you say excuse me to people in an empty room? No, you wouldn't. So it's exactly the same with your signals. Your signals don't have to precede your steering wheel. So this parked car up ahead, there's no one near me, there's no in the world I need to signal. And that's the process that we need to try and follow at all times, to have a look to see whether it affects others. Signals aren't for our benefit, they're for other people's benefit. If you put them on all the time, you sometimes just get into that habit of just putting them on, and like I said, you won't time them correctly. So I'm going to turn left here, no one's really close. So there's no real issue about even signalling now. I've given this car plenty of time to know what I'm doing, and when I did signal, it actually changed to lane 2 as well, so that's all good. So this learner parked in on the left. Again, very, very doubtful that I'm going to signal to go round. I'm just keeping to the left side of my lane so the blue car can then pass that one, and then I'm positioning early so the other learner knew what I was doing, and it moved across nicely as well. And I'm holding this position now so people can see exactly where I am and what I'm doing. Same thing here. I'm now dealing with the two cars coming towards us with their lights on, and I'm taking up a position to the left hand side of my lane to show them they've got plenty of room early. I'm now positioning out really early to get my good view of this grey one to the left. Been seen, no problems, and off we go again. So you don't have to be signalling in and out round things like that. Do it with your position. Signals are often an excuse for bad planning, I feel, as well. People get there and then go, oh, I don't know what's going on, put a signal on and then do it. Now, horn, do I need it? No. Once I can see that front window of the red car there, they can see me, so I don't need to be using my horn to then show people I'm there or warn them of my presence. And again, that's another massively misunderstood part of signalling, and the horn is a signal, it's not a reprimand, don't forget. So up ahead there is a queue, there's no one close behind, so again I don't need to be using my brakes particularly early to show people what's going on. No issues. Now I'm going to go ahead on this road, and this is where positioning tells people everything. The road is slightly off to the right, so already I'm taking up a position so people can see I'm in this lane, but now I want to follow the road ahead, so I don't want to go further to the right. So your position all the time is showing people where we're at. And again, people can't do that very well if they don't plan and they don't look forward very well. Alright, so there's nothing really to do signalling wise. I'm going to do a turn at a roundabout a little bit further up, but again I'm just keeping clued into other people's signals that they're giving me. Don't be so narrow-minded to think signals are just these things, these indicators. The person behind keeping a distance, not looking like they're going to overtake, no issues around, it's simple, dead easy. Again, I'm just going to use my limiter. You can change the limit by using this little toggle here on these BMWs. You can set it anything from 20 and above. You can't set it lower than 20. Just go back to signalling for a second. I'm not going to indicate, but I am just going to check and move across. So if that girl was still putting stuff in the car, she knew that I was zero risk. Alright, so what we've got down at the end is a roundabout. Now it's a mini roundabout as well, and I'm taking the second exit, so there's no in the world I can be signalling left because people think that I'm going to take the first one, which sort of like comes back up on us. So I'm not going to indicate, and by the time I actually get past the first road, I'm virtually in to my road that I'm taking. So honestly, here no signals required. My position was helping the vehicles coming from the other side, showing them where I was going, so honestly the signal there was no interest. Now I'm going to head left, so I'm taking up a nice early position just to show this blue one to my right where I'm going. They can overtake to stop at the line a little bit sooner if they really wish, but I'm not. A left signal here, compulsory left turn, doesn't help anyone behind me at the minute, apart from maybe the van. Say if the van didn't know the layout, but honestly he's signalling me. I'm actually not going to bother. I think it's a dedicated slip lane for me, so it's obvious to everyone where I'm going, and there's no pedestrians around the corner, so me, I'm not going to bother. However, we're on rocky ground here. We're on tricky situation regarding the driving test, because honestly I've had plenty of situations in my time where examiners have failed people for not signalling in a not exactly the same situation like that, but relatively similar. So my advice in real life is to really look and really see whether these signals are going to be of benefit. But on your driving test, unfortunately it shouldn't be like this, but on your driving test what I advise people to do is, if they're doing a junction, is to put a signal on. Now there is a couple of reasons. I've just alluded to the examiners. I can't guarantee their frame of mind with it, but learners aren't very experienced drivers. They're novices still, so they're not going to be up to the level with observation that maybe an experienced driver would be. So I'm turning right at the roundabout. I definitely need a right signal. Who does that right signal help? It helps no one really behind, because I'm going to flow on. It actually helps the grey Fiesta over there and the other Peugeot coming round, and then the left signal that I put on now helps the red van and the blue van know where I'm going so they can come out into the roundabout. So signals at roundabouts people don't really get either. They think that again it's related to the steering, and it's not. Generally the signals actually help people coming onto the roundabout from junctions further round, or even junctions that you're going past or even going into. Especially going into is the left signal as you leave. So have a little look in the highway code. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the signals that we need at roundabouts. However, we have got another one a little touch further up that I'm going to go off and do. There's nothing here that requires a signal. Parked cars on both sides. All again I'm trying to do is have a look to see whether my position can show any vehicles either behind or ahead, or any other road users, where I'm going and what I'm doing. So, situation up ahead, it's sort of like a roundabout. The road just bends round to the left. You can't obviously go down a no entry. There's no reason for a signal, it just goes round here. But there is a signal maybe required at the end where I'm going to head round to the right, and it's because I've got a choice, and this one behind probably needs to know, and it also helps maybe that blue one over there decide on when it's going to emerge. So we're all good. Maybe help this lady as well. She could see the cars coming around here. Do we need a signal to go around to the left? No, it's not helping anyone, it's not a problem. That one should not be sitting there at the side of the road waiting with a signal on. All that does is just make people coming up behind think that they're going to pull out. It should wait until there's an appropriate gap and then decide whether or not that the signal is required, maybe watching people in front. So don't sit at the side of the road with a signal on unless you are in this situation. Say if you were in a situation that this white Hyundai is in, say if that one was moving off, now a signal for the Hyundai would be good, because the speed difference between this one and the Q is minimal, so therefore there's no interruption with the flow. Going back to the scenario that I just said about that guy sitting at the side of the road with a signal on, the speed difference is significant. So if people were to slow down and let him out, I know people think there's no problem with that. No, there isn't. However, on your driving test that can very well fail as well, because you're causing these people supposed inconvenience, and I agree totally with it. Now I'm going to use a signal here to maybe let the silver one out. Notice I'm trying to make eye contact. There's no in the world I'm going to flash. There you go. So all the people who are all too instant to wave and beckon or flash the lights, doesn't need it. Just literally, there you go, thank you. Putting hazards on to say thank you. Personally, I don't mind that. I know I did a lesson or a video on hazard lights a little while back, and a little thank you like that for me is no issue, as long as there's no problems, no sort of confusion to anyone else. So going back to me letting the silver car out, I didn't flash, I didn't beckon. You don't need to. Show people with your position and your speed exactly what's going on, and if you hold back and look at someone, it generally means go on after you. Okay, the other side of that I've already talked about a little bit earlier on when I was talking about the movement of my car at the satellites where there's potential for people to cross the road. That sort of movement is sort of like sod off, we're going, and you need to use that on the road to manage situations. Now I've told no one at all watching this where I'm going at the roundabout, but where am I going at the roundabout? It's obvious, isn't it? However, the right signal is still required. It's still required to people from the other side, Chilwell Road it is, to show them that I'm coming round. And I'll put that on when there's sufficient time for people to need to know. And honestly, I could do it now. There's no other side road, so yeah, no one's coming past the problem. So I'm turning right, I'm taking that exit round there. Chilwell 5 ways, it's a busy roundabout at 9:40 in the morning at any times, to be honest. What you've got to be careful from this side as well is people in the left lane then turning all the way to the right, which you shouldn't do. If you're in doubt on which lane to pick, there's one. If you're in doubt on which lane to pick, you pick the right hand lane. But this Mercedes is doing the wrong thing, so we're going to have a little look on what happens with this. They're all edging out where they maybe shouldn't be, so I'm just going to stand back, hold back. Not going to go out just yet. I'm going to pick a nice, safe, suitable gap, but we can manage what's going on with this Mercedes. That's all right, they're off and they're out of my way and out of my problem. So there's a gap on its way after the Mini, I think, is a potential gap for me. Less than, yeah, we're good. So again, I'm signalling, and the right signals helping the cars from this junction in front of me know that I'm coming round, and then check signal left. The left signal helps the traffic coming out of this road know where I'm going. No problems. So just remember, back to that Mercedes on the roundabout, you do not have to signal to steer, to pick the wrong lane and then go, well, I'm going to put a signal on because I'm picking the wrong lane and I'm doing what I think I need to do. Right, okay, that just shows people's misunderstanding with these signals. Alright, so hopefully there's a fair bit there already that people weren't really certain of. Hopefully all of these points, as always, they're there to help, they're there to maybe educate people, get our roads a little bit better. Now here, just be ready to use my brakes as early as you can as a signal for this. So the moment that those lights changed, I was lightly and gently as early as I can on the brake pedal. And that gives the cars behind as long a warning as I can that I'm going to be stopping, and as early a warning as I can. Alright, so there's not much going on here apart from that fella over the far side walking his dogs. He had a little gesture towards the car that seemed to jump the lights. What signal does the Golf estate tell me across the other side? It gives me a signal of a lack of planning, because they've got caught beyond the pedestrian crossing area. A lack of planning is risk for me, so you can spot people like that all the way through. Let's just watch this situation scenario up ahead with the secondary set of lights and see what people are doing, signalling with that. They're doing a good job today. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they just sit and use the left lane solely, use all the space, and then refilter into where you need to be passed. That Golf wasn't a big deal, it's done a U-turn, but I'm going to keep my eye on it a little bit further up. Now the bus is parked. This is a good scenario that we may need to signal. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get away. I'm watching this Porsche next to me, but there's a big gap behind. I'm definitely going to signal, because that just maybe pre-warns people behind me, if they haven't planned well enough, that the bus is there. But I'm not going to signal to come back. I'm going to head over the flyover. Signal there wasn't needed, there was no one behind, it wasn't affecting anyone, and it probably would have been a little bit of a mislead because there was the other side road there as well. So remember, a good signal should only ever mean one thing. Alright, there's obviously no signals here. There's a scenario down the other side of the flyover where the road merges in that we may need to be thinking about signals, so I'm just prepping for it. I'm just keeping an eye on my right mirror and seeing who's behind me, just in case there's an escape route. The signals for people coming out, relatively unhelpful, but you should really do it. And now I'm just having a little lean forward in my mirror, no problems there. I'm just going to stay put in the middle lane. There's no reason for me to do anything apart from stay put in my lane to show people what's what. Now the lights have just changed, so again I'm checking, I'm using my brakes as early as I can. this guy to the right, although they're not a big deal, they didn't really see that as soon as they could have done and should have done. So I'm aware of that one could be a potential problem. This one, it's a potential problem. So that's again slowing all the traffic down here and just barging out, then is a bigger risk. Why couldn't they have just waited rather than potentially pushing out? They're only going to go and sit at a red light anyway. They knew where they were going. But that scenario is always a little bit of an issue, because if you're in a stopped queue and then traffic's flowing from where we were, that then puts risk onto myself and the people coming up behind. What should you do? You should try and pick a better gap, maybe wait for there to be space before you then decide to go. Remember, that signal is showing people your intentions. It doesn't mean I'm doing it. And did I really have a choice with that BMW there? Not really. I was initially going to keep positive and keep moving and sort of like make them wait, but being positive, you've always got to then always be ready to do as I did there and just slow down and go, yeah, whatever. But again, it just increases risk. Back here, brake lights are on. What I'm going to do, because I don't really want to be next to this one on this bend as well, just keeping back. They did cut it also, and again I'm using my brake lights as early as I can. Just going on to the brake lights. It sounds pretty obvious, but the red's the warning colour, isn't it? Okay, blood is red. So when you bleed, you've generally got a little problem to deal with. So anything red that you see, you've got to show caution with, keep away from, if you like. And people don't use their brake lights as good as they should do. They don't think about other people around. People nowadays are really self-absorbed in all walks of life and in all parts of life, not just on the roads. A little think about other people around you. At the end of the day, you can sort out your own stuff, but you've got to be aware of the other idiots around you, to be honest. Definitely don't be one of those idiots. So I'm here in this lane. I'm going to stay here as well, just with the traffic flow and where I'm going to a little bit further up. And again, I'm just looking for little clues and little signals from people around. All right, I'm backing off, giving this one space to move in. And the Audi to the left did a good job as well. They didn't go off and close that space down, which, if you're one of those people who do that, come on, get a grip. You're doing nothing but being selfish. There are certain scenarios, like I've just talked about with that white BMW coming out, that it's sometimes more dangerous to slow down and let someone out. But in a situation like that, where there's a nice space, there are certain people, certain drivers on the road, and it's getting more and more common, who will intentionally close that space down as soon as they see a signal. And it's honestly, those people on the road cause more hassle than anything. So don't be one of those people. If people want to come out, share the roads, let them use the space, not an issue. But like I said, it's a different scenario than the white BMW that we saw just a bit before. I'm just watching all of this to the left, making sure that there's no one who's going to wish to come out. I'm making sure that this is all free. The black Mercedes was a potential for me as well, because it was positioned to the offside of the lane. The van, who's closing its space down? Yeah, the silver one's just closed its space down, so I'm just keeping well back. There's actually a lane free to my right if needed. The van needs to be changing its speed a little bit more. It's just trying to bully, and then this is what I'm talking about a space closer, this silver one to the left. She was right next to the van was signalling. Now, I am going to go round this. I am going to signal for this car, and I'm just going to command this one and then hold back for the lorry. But I was again ready to help and ready to deal with. That was a tricky little situation, that as well. It was potentially problematic, and I I was ready for that blue one to the right, the one that's second car behind us now, because of the thought that it may think that I was going in before it. So that was a tricky scenario. The bus is going to park because the fella's running for it. I'm just going to follow the road ahead. So there's not a clear, simple message with any signals of black and white, yes you should or no you shouldn't. You've got to look at the situation and think what's best and who needs it and whether it's going to help the situation. I did have another option there to go and stay in the left hand side when that lorry was coming out, but we didn't know that the bus was going to pull away because it was blocked by the lorry. So we should be looking to go round. When buses park, treat them as a parked vehicle. Obviously look to go round, but always be ready to give way. So again, I'm just going to stay here. It's only to where I'm going to go a little touch further up as well. That bus may very well be parking at the bus stop, so there's no issues with that. Now I'm aware of this one, I'm not going to close its space down. It's fine, off we go. So see problems and cure them rather than go and making it worse. Brake lights, there's danger. Could the lorry wish to come out again? It shouldn't now we're flowing. None of this should go, but I'm being aware of it. I was even ready to use my horn there. And that lack of planning by those people then causes issues. So that's exactly what I was talking about before. When there's a flow of traffic past a stopped queue, if you like, then to fit out becomes really problematic. My advice, sit and wait till it be clear in this flow before you then try and push out, unlike the white BMW before. Okay, so I've tried to get out of the way of the van behind me as much as I can. The signal is a benefit because it was showing the people around I was getting out of the way, and no reason to slow particularly early because there's no one behind with me stopping. Okay, so flashing lights we haven't talked about. Very rarely flash my lights. Loads of people use them as that instinctive after you, but it can be really confusing. I could be flashing my lights because I know this lorry driver, saying hi to him, and then a young child walks out and then gets hit by a car coming through the lights. So that's the problem with the flash, and it's exactly the same reasoning behind not putting your hazard lights on for everything, because there's no obvious meaning. Make it really obvious that you want to let someone go, and it's right to let someone go by holding back, eye contact. You don't need to beckon, you don't need to flash. When do you flash your lights? Well, Humpback Bridge springs to mind. At night, people can't see you coming, flash your lights. It might be out of the time of the operation of the horn. Okay, so that right signal once I was in the lane probably wasn't a massive benefit, but again, going back to what I was talking about before, if you're going to be taking your driving test, if you're doing a junction, put a signal on. Parked cars, no one's looking like they're pushing past, so I'm going to position nice and early. An early plan often stops the need for these signals, and I'm holding my position, show this Audi behind, I'm here, they can wait, but I'm also showing them by my straddle position that I was taking that I was going to come back to the left. This roundabout, I'm going to take the first exit at the second roundabout, so left at the second roundabout. Left lane's the one for this. You cannot be doing a left turn at the second roundabout if you're going to be using lane 2. Is the bus clear in front? Yeah, off we go. Not a problem. Don't need a right signal to go around the roundabout. The left signal is required. Left signal helps the people coming onto the roundabout from over there know that I'm going in here, police van included, so we can help the flow, and that's what the signals generally are like used for on roundabouts. Is the lorry going to come out? I'm ready for my horn. Now he's coming out, he's fine. I think he just saw me and decided to go anyway. Right signal to lane change, most definitely. Now I've got a little issue with the parked ones, so I'm just going to do 31 on my speedo just to get past. I'm just keeping an eye on the lorry behind. Back my speed back down again, and then I am going to just glide across. There's no issues. It's a given that you should be coming back in. So the people who signal to come back in for me, generally you don't need to. I've actually had one test in my 20 years which I disagreed with the examiner. I'm going to go back onto this in a second. I'm just going to put a signal on here just because I wish to use a little bit of that space that lorry's coming up. He's not planning very well. So that was my reasoning behind the signal, no signal to come back in. So that was quite important. I'll talk about the lorry here, and then I'll go back to what I was talking about the examiner in a sec. That lorry driver ain't the best, so I'm just slowing him down early and then rolling in. He's not really paying attention either. Okay, so notice there, it wasn't for me to be arsey with that lorry driver. He showed little consideration for me moving around the park one. He was closing that space, so I put the signal on. He then decided to come in behind. He was very close. I slowed early, and honestly I think it caught him out a little bit. He jumped on the brakes quite harshly, so he's a little bit of a danger. You could see from all the signs that he was giving about pulling out when he did, everything about him saying to me potential problems. So we're watching him, and this is another thing that you can be dealing with the signals. So back to the examiner. I've had one test in 20 years that I disagreed with the result, and that's it. The rest of the time, honestly, examiners, they're all well trained generally, you know, to a reasonable level of consistency. It's always going to be impossible to get exact decisions to be exactly the same, because we're not robots, we're humans. But the one scenario that not signalling here, by the way, for me, it's just the way the road goes, there's no help for it. I think the signal would probably confuse people that I was going to go and try and exit into lanes 2 or 3. I'll go back to the examiner in a minute. We've got the blue lights perfectly as a signal, so I'm just keeping an eye on things to the side. This car's next to me, so I'm just backing off, and I don't want to be next to this one. It's just less risk. There we go. Looks as though there's been something gone on here. Nobody's. Yeah, a little bit of a prank by the looks of it. I'm turning left, so let's tell the signal he's behind, helps these people. Now it doesn't help many people, so if it clicks off, I'm not going to bother putting that back on. It's all clear. So going back to what I was saying about the examiner, I had one situation where I didn't agree with the test result, and I wasn't happy with the explanation, and simply what it was that the pupil had moved around a bus, and they didn't signal back in past the bus to move to the left lane, and the examiner who was conducting the test was being observed by a senior examiner in the back, and I went and had a word with the original examiner, and he was saying about, oh, didn't signal to move in, and then the senior examiner must have heard me, came out and then gave a totally different reason on why the pupil had failed for the signal. So there was a contradiction between the two examiners, and push it very far, but for me to signal to move back in around a bus, you don't need to. It's a given People say, what if the bus comes out? Well, you're in front of them, you will see where the bus is. Well, you should see where the bus is. Just like I did before with the lorry when it was next to us. I saw where the lorry was and I used my signal sparingly, but it did need it because he was pushing that space a little bit. So when people say you've always got to signal for doing this or doing that, it's utter rubbish. It's garbage. Everything comes from observations. So when people say I need to put a signal on all the time, I do it anyway. Honestly, utter rubbish. You're not changing what's what. There, took an early position into lane 2, allowing the bus out. We decided to wait anyway. Do I need to signal to come back in? I don't think I'm going to come back in because that car's turn. I'm going to just stay put where I am. That's all good. So back to what I was saying. So don't put a signal on every single time. It's not the way to do it. You need to change what you're doing to suit each scenario. If you're in that habit of putting signals on all the time, try and improve, try and get out of it. Because if you really look and really observe, you'll be a much safer driver with less risk. I hope that's been interesting for people. I hope people have picked up a couple of few little bits, and hopefully I've dispelled the myth that BMW drivers don't use the signals. Well, maybe I don't in certain situations where you would, but is that because I've looked and I've seen and I'm a step ahead? Maybe, maybe not. I'll leave that for you to decide, but thanks a lot for watching, and I'll hopefully see you all soon. Now, not finished yet. The brake lights on that car parked at the left were absolutely key to me knowing it wasn't moving off. So sorry, can't resist that. That was a good situation. It's not a good situation for them to be parked in a bus stop, but remember, your brake lights can be used as a way of showing people you're not moving. Remember that as well. Again, thanks for watching. See you all soon, peeps.